So here is the title of my talk, and I will try to go fast because I tend to go over time, but hopefully not this time. I will start with well, the slides are not changing now. Why is that? I'm clicking and they don't change. Okay. Now they changed. So I'll start with this kind of teaser. Um, I think personalization is actually an optimization problem. And we all know that optimization problems in a multidimensional space are very hard, particularly for personalization. We are looking for optimal solutions for one user, but it may not work very well for another user. So we're talking about multi-stakeholder recommendations and multi-utility recommendations. It may also not lead to goodness for the community as well, if you have massive personalization. It may also, an optimal solution may not remain optimal in time because people change and also the context matters. Solution for one particular application does not work necessarily for another. So reuse of approaches is difficult. So with this, well, the challenge of this optimization problem, here is the outline of my talk. I will start with talking about personalizing persuasive technology, but for individuals. So this is like the standard personalization is aimed for the benefit of the individual user, right? So I'll give some examples of work in our lab, and then I will focus on persuasion for community, for the sake of community. So adaptive incentive mechanisms which benefit the community, and also persuasive social visualizations for the benefit of community. Then I'll talk about social problems which arise, which we are all very well aware, and how we could attempt to mitigate these problems by use of technology. So I'll start with a bold proposal for ethical persuasion, a framework to support it. And then I'll talk about our work on transparent, controllable interfaces for recommender systems and frameworks for sharing user data, which I believe is very important for us as personalizers. So persuasive technology. What is persuasive technology? It's a technology aimed at changing user behaviors, and it can use various techniques, both conscious, on a conscious level by argumentation, but also subliminal methods which rely on psychological quirks or cognitive biases, and which basically can manipulate users towards or bias them towards certain actions. So there are many examples, and I have listed here a whole bunch of them. And you might be surprised to see, for example, recommender systems listed, but actually the original definition of B.J. Fogg, who started the field, is very broad. In a way, actually, every computer technology is persuasive technology if the computer interacts with the human and in some way changes human behavior. And in a way, actually, all interactive technologies change user behaviors. Persuasive technologies particularly use strategies. So in the field of persuasive technologies, there are known many different taxonomies, classifications, and so on for either behavior change or for persuasive strategies. And these are strategies which are rooted in research in social psychology, from the area of advertisement, but also from the health sciences, because there the problem of changing human behavior is very important to make patients, for example, adhere to therapies or addicts to break harmful behaviors and so on. So we see, for example, Cialdini's principles of persuasion are anchored in the marketing area, and probably many of you know about them. These principles of authority, people tend to listen to people of authority, or social proof, people follow the crowd, they watch what others are doing and they do the same, or reciprocity, people tend to return favors, so they feel obliged to behave cooperatively if somebody behaves cooperatively to them, or commitment, when people are more likely to follow up if they have invested into something or stated a commitment, and scarcity and so on. BJ Fogg has defined another number of strategies, many different strategies, and there are even more in the area of information sciences. Actually, Kukkonen and Haruma have defined a persuasive systems design model, which is 31 strategies classified in 4 different groups, and so on. So all of these strategies are actually not all of them are universally applicable. They are applicable based on the needs of the application or the capabilities of the application, also based on the domain, on the target behavior, and so on. So it's basically a whole palette of interventions, as they are called often in the literature, which researchers or designers can pick, to fit the target behavior which they want to influence of the user in a particular application, a particular context. So to personalize these technologies, there are two main approaches. Now, the one on the left is data-driven personalization. And it's basically machine learning approach. You fire at the user different strategies and see how the user responds. Do they change their behavior or not? And if they do change according to the wish of the designer or the desire, if they follow into the desired behavior, then you basically strengthen this relationship between this strategy and this user, and you offer more of this kind of strategy to this user. So, of course, as we all know, all data mining or machine learning approaches have the cold start problem. They don't work very well for a new user, and generally they need a lot of training data. And so big companies which hoard user data, they use these strategies. But if you are a small company, or if you're developing an application aiming, you don't know your users and so on, well, in this case, it's better to develop a model. So, and the model-based personalization is actually something which our lab, especially Rita Orji, who I think is in the audience, have pioneered. And it's based on developing a model which maps certain feature of the user to persuasive strategy. So the model is developed offline. It's developed basically as a result of user studies, which are using validated tools for example, for user features, user personality or demographics, and so on. And on the other side, strategies, they in these studies, they also seek to see how users with particular personality type or demographics respond to a selection of persuasive strategies of interest for a particular application or a particular domain. So once the model is developed, this model then can be used to tailor the persuasive intervention to the particular user if we know the demographic features or the psychological type of the user. So I will illustrate now this approach, and I will be using Rita's slides from her PhD defense. so what did Rita do? She wanted to motivate users to eat healthy, and she wanted to build a game, which is a persuasive game. To do this. So she decided to base her model on a profile of user, which is based on psychological types. Now, for games, there is a particular typology of psychological types. There are many actually. There is Bartle, very well known, very simple for four different types, but also there is the brain hacks, which is uh, some neurological neuroscience validation. So it has 7 different gamer types, which some of them map to Bartle, but it's richer. It has more different types. So she also explored a set of persuasive strategies. They're not a clean set from a particular taxonomy, but these are commonly used in health applications. So one of them is comparison, competition, cooperation, customization, personalization, and so on. So what she did was she did a study on medical Turk with over 800 subjects, where first of all, these subjects had to um, um, answer a questionnaire to find out the brain hacks type of this particular user. And then they were presented storyboards illustrating the different persuasive strategies. So for each strategy, there will be a storyboard which illustrates how a system using this strategy will interact. And then the user will be asked, how persuasive do they think is this strategy? So it's self-reported. Based on the collected data from this study, she developed a model. And this model, these are here the beta coefficients, the path coefficients, which show kind of the influence of the brain hacks type of the user on susceptibility of particular strategy. So you can see that all of these are significant, and the blue ones are positive and then red ones are negative. So you can see that the same strategy can have completely opposite effect to 2 different personality types. So obviously we need personalization. So guided by this, Rita decided to develop a game. This is this game. So she picked 2 strategies and 2 gamer types. So this would be her target gamer types, achiever and conqueror. These are very common among players. And competition and comparison are also very common and very easy to implement persuasive strategy. So I will show you now how they were implemented. First of all, the game was like a space aliens game, and the strategies. So those of you who have played space aliens, you know how you shoot these enemies, the foods, but some of them are enemies, some of them are good actually. Some drop minerals and feed you, some drop harmful stuff. So you want to collect the useful stuff and to avoid the harmful stuff. So for the 2 versions of the game, one of them uses only achievers. For a title for achievers, it uses levels and score and so on. This is for achievers and badges. The other one is for conquerors. It's based on social comparison competition. It uses leaderboards. And by the way, this was an original contribution of Rita to think of a leaderboard which is simulated, because it was a single player game, but the leaderboard actually created artificial users, populated it to show progress in playing the game, so that it incentivized the user to achieve more, to climb up in the leaderboard. Okay, so here are the results. This was another study where the users, again, we collected the gamer types, and then they had to play the game, stopping at various points to report what are their current statistics, or their current scores, to make sure that they're paying attention to this. And then we measured attitude, self-efficacy, and intention before and after playing the game. And here is the result for attitude change. We see that achievers are really strongly influenced by the reward. And this is the tailored, personalized for them strategy. And conquerors are also very strongly influenced by the other strategy, which was tailored for them, the competition strategy. In general, these are random strategies, not tailored to users. We see a positive effect. All of them were motivational, but not such a good effect as those tailored ones. So it really makes sense to personalize. It amplifies the effect. So this was, I spent a lot of time to explain this, even though maybe some of you are familiar with this work, but it was important because it also created a method for creating these models. And this method has been used successfully by my next students, Ifeoma, who actually applied it in the area of e-commerce, particularly healthy food shopping. Now, Ifeoma defended her thesis in March 2020, just as COVID hit. And at that time, at least in Canada, shopping online for food was a rarity. But it was like a crash started with COVID. Everybody was shopping online for food. So actually, this domain gained big importance at that moment. And shopping for healthy food is quite important. Now, yesterday, the invited speaker spoke about one possible community goal to encourage healthy food eating in a recommender system. I want to make a distinction here. Ifeoma's focus was not on creating recommender system at all. Like there was no recommender system. Actually, her focus was on how to persuade people to pay attention to products if they're recommended to them. So what persuasive strategies would work for different users. So she studied different psychological types, just like Rita did, but in the domain of e-commerce. And there she borrowed results of research and marketing. Apparently, shoppers differ in their need for uniqueness and also in their different shopper types. So here are some graphs which show the results of her research. With, for example, shopper types are balanced buyers or convenience shoppers, store-oriented or variety seeker. And you can see the impact of different Cialdini strategies on these different types of shoppers. And similarly, for need for uniqueness, you have three different kinds of shoppers, creative choice and popular choice or avoidance of similarity. And here again, very different impact of different persuasive strategies. Some influences the scarcity of the product or authority, medical, or commitment that, for example, if the user declares that they want to shop healthy food and so on. So there are different ways in which these strategies can be implemented with nudges or with a game. Actually, Ifeoma also created a game which simulates a shopping experience with a shopping cart, and the user sees nudges, messages, which present also health information, like similar to the labels of goods. So it in a way, it's also educational to teach shoppers to read labels of the goods which they are shopping for. So I will move forward. Keynote is probably known because he has participated in a couple of conferences UMAP conferences, he did the same kind of approach, but he got really deep in studying the impact of various factors like culture, gender, and personality. And these are easier to get factors because they are demographic features which can be guessed by the language people are using or their location and so on. And how these factors influence susceptibility to different persuasive strategies. So he studied Cialdini, but also he was very interested in other factors, not just the persuasive strategies, but the design itself, the aesthetics, for example, and what kind of designs are perceived as aesthetic and usable and useful and credible and persuasive by people from different culture. Particularly, he was interested in Nigerian versus Western Canadian US culture. So he did a number of studies and found some interesting results. So he studied also very different strategies, particularly interested in social strategies influenced by the social cognitive theory, social learning, social comparison, and competition. These are distinct persuasive strategies in taxonomy of persuasive strategies. As a result of some of the guidelines which he developed in his many papers, he developed a persuasive app for a home-based exercise, and he evaluated it in Canadian, Nigerian population, and he has published papers also on this. This prototype actually was demoed at the conference and won the best demo award. Okay, so moving to the social web now. I'm going to focus on optimizing not for the individual but for a community. And there are when you scale up on a community level, suddenly new needs appear. And we all know in our community there has been work on recommendations for groups. Judith Masthoff started, I think, this work, but it has been followed by many others. But also in discussion forums, just how do you manage a discussion forum is an open task, because conflicts emerge when you have people contributing, and there are fights emerging, and how do you preserve the community, the friendliness and the acceptability of the community. So there are governance issues, and sustainability becomes very important. So persuasion here comes at two different levels. On one side, you want to motivate contributions by individual users, so it's kind of individual level persuasion. On the other side, you want to adapt to the changing needs of the community. So somehow you have to govern the rules, to manage the rules, and to ensure fairness and trust. So I'm going to talk about some other work which we have done in our lab, which falls into this. I want also to draw a parallel with human communities. All of this work actually on online communities can be mapped to real communities. We need incentives for participation, but also persuasion works without monetary or actual rewards. Reputation is a big incentive as well. Ethics is basically creating norms or emerging norms in a community or in a society for civilized behavior, for behavior which is not preventing people pursue their goals, which kind of helps to resolve conflict. And that's where the concepts of right and wrong behavior emerge. It's basically how to live together in a group. And these rules have to be fair, they have to be applied universally, and special care has to be taken for the weakest members. This parallel with the discussion for fairness. And governance is very important. How do you optimize for the needs of the community? How do you create macro level mechanisms which orchestrate individual contributions as they are necessary? You know, even in normal society, human society, new laws are necessary as needs change. You know, constantly we saw the GDPR emerging recently, and you know, this is because there was a need in the society for this kind of law. And transparency is also very important. So I will show some incentive mechanisms. The first one, which I want to talk about, is um, encouraging ratings and reciprocity through visualization. This is old work by Andrew Webster. He developed a heat metaphor to show the popularity of posts using the metaphor of heating or cooling. So it was transparent to the user. When the user rates a post, there was an animation like a boiling effect, and the user sees immediately the effect of his action. The post which they rated kind of becomes brighter. Um, so this was kind of to encourage, to give a feeling of fulfillment and effect of individual actions, altruistic motivation. Another one, actually, this system had a regulatory, self-regulating adaptive mechanism. Um, what is this? Well, one important thing to notice is that ratings, in order to avoid um, asocial behaviors or cheating, you have to make ratings precious. They have to be valuable. So there was the concept of energy. So each new post contributes energy, and energy is actually ratings which are available to give. Every new post brings new units of energy into the system, and this energy can then be distributed. I will demonstrate in an animation. So here is a new post, and let's say the community already has some energy by contributed previous posts. Now, if somebody likes this post and decides to rate it positively to heat it up, they are using, basically with each rating, they're using um, energy from this stored community energy, and it's limited, right? So as you see now, this post is visually brighter, but there is no more energy left. In order to um, be able to rate some other posts now, one has to downrate something. So if I downrate now this post, I rate it down, it releases energy. This post cools down, it's less visible, but now there is more energy to distribute to other posts. We also had the decay, the energy expired with time. And in this way, basically, if there is no new content, there is no need anymore to rate, right? There is basically, the forum is dead. Okay, so here is another motivational visualization, which is based on right, it's actually like a leaderboard. It encourages users to contribute in different dimensions. It shows the contributions of a community of users. If you hover over it, you see the particular user's name, and the size shows how many contributions. The color shows what is the level: gold, silver, bronze, plastic, the green. The brightness shows what is the quality of ratings that they gave. What is the quality of contributions they made to the community? So it's basically three different leaderboards in one, and it's also not a real leaderboard because it doesn't encourage competition. It's implicit competition. It's not a ranking, right? Um, so this was a motivational visualization to incentivize contribution. Actually, this system went through many iterations, and the previous versions of the visualization were very motivational. They contributed very unhealthy behaviors. They were cheaters who were dumping all kinds of random links with very low quality resources. So actually, this particular visualization belonged to a last version of the system, which had adaptive incentive mechanism inside. And I will now explain how this mechanism of governance of the rewards worked. So this was work of Ran Chen. So this, you see, in order to grow in your status and to be visible in this visualization, and also to get many other privileges, two kinds of user actions were rewarded by the mechanism. So sharing papers and rating papers. So these rewards earned points. These actions earned points to the user. These points were converted into a membership. The membership was the same as status or a level in the game. And the membership gave different privileges like glory, like color, different interface. The color of the interface corresponded to the level of the user. This particular one is green, plastic, the lowest level, but there was a golden one, very shiny and yellow. I like yellow. And also more ratings to give out. Actually, it gave them more power to say what is of high quality in the community, as well as everybody got personalized messages or nudges. The word nudges didn't exist back then. So now this is kind of the normal feedback loop, right, for reward mechanism in a community. What was interesting in this work was that actually it was adaptive to the community need. So I wouldn't say personalized, but it was communized. No, not communized. It's not a very good term for this. So here is how it worked. We had an individual model and a community model. The community model actually defined how valuable are the contributions at any particular time. There was a community reward function, which in the beginning of the week, every topic, this was in educational context, every topic started in 1 week and the discussion was going into this week. This community reward factor was decreasing, and at one point it was dropping down. Expected number of contributions was set up, a parameter set up by the teacher. You don't want to have millions of papers, you wanted to have manageable number of papers or contributions. The individual model was actually to reward every user differently based on the quality of their previous contributions. If the user tended to contribute low quality, they will get lesser reward. If they contributed high quality, they will get more rewards. So this actually, in evaluation, and you can read more about it, was very successful. We never saw any cheating, and it was considered as fair and transparent by the students. So it was a very good mechanism. Further work actually explored on simulation of this mechanism, how to set up parameters, for example, for computing the membership, how to set up thresholds, because there is a lot of things which you don't know when you design such a mechanism. We were hoping that with simulation, we can actually find out answers for this. So in a way, this was an early attempt of gamifying, creating kind of a gamified experience in a community to steer, manage, govern the community. We had many students later on who worked in the area of gamification in educational context. I will not talk about all these works, but I will talk now about the problems. Back then, when we were doing this work, it was a very techno-optimistic era. Everything should be a game. And here is a quote by B.J. Fogg. There were books saying everything bad is good for you, play games, and people, children, youth playing games is actually good for them. And 15 years later, this kind of attitude changed. Here is a quote from an article in the Medium. There were articles appearing like this, war on kids, and then addictive applications. You can see looping people into flows of incentive and reward, making people like users of a slot machine, asymmetric relationship, and bringing huge profits for those who sit on big data and can actually command all of these persuasive strategies and make them so effective. Recently, the Social Dilemma movie appeared, and we had the hearing. Of course, this was all triggered by events, the Cambridge Analytica and the Brexit and Trump winning the election and so on. So, but there are really scary scenarios, you know, the social credit system. And again, in the arts, they are very effective in making really scary movies about the effects of these technologies. So there is now a big worry in society about this. So what can we do? Um, Maybe there are technological solutions. There is a new market niche, you know, to build persuasive apps and self-help apps for social media addicts. But of course, you have seen them, these meditation apps, and also things like this, which help you stop procrastinating and maybe stop using, you know, turning your cell phone screen black and white to stop you from using it, or to make it very uncomfortable using it after bedtime. Um, uh, you know, there's a lot of effort going on right now to de-addict users, but the assumption is that people want to get de-addicted, that they want to change their behavior. How to make them want to change their behavior? Uh, and should we? Maybe they're very happy with this behavior. Um, Anyways, this is one possible direction for personalized counter persuasion. um, However, what I want to work in the future is how to make persuasive strategies, those hidden stealth persuasive strategies, more explicit. So how to make them transparent, accountable, and auditable. So I'm thinking that persuasive technologies have to be certified, and this certification should be using some kind of taxonomy which classifies them according to their stealth, what kind of psychological features or cognitive biases they exploit, how invasive they are, what kind of data, user data, is used to personalize them. Also, for what purpose is the persuasion and who benefits from it. So um, this kind of certificates will be issued by special entities. These entities will be legally bound and trusted. And I can envisage that there will be a market for watchdogs or auditing companies which can police the use of unethical persuasion and basically start legal action against companies which are using this. So in this way, there is like a community protection for users who unawarely fall in trap of manipulative persuasion. So the idea is to make transparent and controllable persuasive technologies. The area of danger is recommender blind spots. You all know filter bubble, incredible stupidity on the internet, and communities which are basically harmful. And a big divide. Um, Even now with COVID, actually it breaks friendships because people have completely different views on things. And so one approach which we have done again a long time ago was for transparency and user control on hybrid recommender systems. This is just, I'll very briefly talk about this. It's a visualization of the user and all the correlated users of their neighborhood in as a clock in time. And here is how much the user influences them and how much they influence the user. Usually this is a symmetrical relationship. It's a correlation, right? But this visualization allows the user to manipulate the strength of relationship your neighbors have on you. So if you become aware that, for example, obviously you are in the same group with Trump, and maybe you don't want to be in the same group with Trump, maybe then you can manually pull down this influence, and you won't get recommendations or you won't follow Trump's tweets. Anyway, this is kind of the general idea. Another one is this is a visualization for Facebook. You know that Facebook filters the stream. This one actually doesn't filter, it shows everything, but it shows it in a way which emphasizes most recent posts and also most influential posts and posters. Another one directly addresses the filter bubble. We built a simulation of Facebook, peer-to-peer Medmica based on Friendica platform. And we built also a recommender system, which was a social recommender system, and it was hybrid because it also had possibility for tagging and topics. And the visualization actually had two views, categories and friends view, and it would show your bubble, the user's bubble, and what is in the bubble are actually categories of posts which, based on your behavior, rating and liking and forwarding, have fallen into your bubble. But the user can actually take one of these topics and drag them out of the bubble, and this way control the recommender. Similar with friends, you can see which of your friends posts you're seeing and who are outside, and you can drag a friend out or in the bubble. Here is another one, but this one is too long and I think I'm running out of time. So I'll jump over this. It's basically a proposal to emphasize in a stream posts instead of recommending. There is no recommendation here at all. It's just emphasis of posts. And we actually found that visually emphasized posts are very persuasive. People do find them more interesting. This was completely random. There was no recommender behind it. Anyway, we'll just go quickly over the results of this interesting study. This was a short paper at Rexis. Finally, about user data sharing and privacy. I think this is a very important issue for our community. And generally, the ethical guidelines for trustworthy AI are based on all of these principles. To share user data, we need to make sure that it's safe, that it's shared safely with people who are allowed to use it and for purposes which are ethical. And users should have a say, or they should trust authorities to watch on their behalf how their data is shared. So these are kind of a set of requirements for user data sharing. And I am very happy to see that there are initiatives, data trusts for user data sharing, and also the ODI initiative, which are all for open data. I think this is very important for our community. Otherwise, you all know how hard it is to work with the scarce data sets released by industry from time to time. So my student Jay has worked on a blockchain distributed ledger based framework for user data sharing. The user data is securely shared in private blockchains. It's immutable and provides provenance. Every access to the user data can be traced, and it can be managed directly by the user or delegated to an authority to manage it on user's behalf. It allows flexible policies for how the data is shared via smart contracts, and regulating the purpose, the type of data, the terms of use, and so on. And also, the framework allows incentives for user data sharing, so users can profit from their data sharing. They can actually earn, even in microcurrency, they can actually, in a very small amounts, they actually can benefit from this. So this might be an equalizer with respect to the immense profits which data hoarders currently have. So this actually is based on very old work on user model sharing, dating back from 2000, work which we did with Jim and Gord, and a whole trace of different papers. But I'm not, of course, going to talk about this. I was just struck me that the first keynote speakers contextual norm 5 tuples actually pretty much matches those computational process of active user modeling, which we defined back in 2000. Yeah, curiosity thing. So take-home messages. Here is some things which you may want to take home. Persuasive technologies and personalized persuasive technologies can serve both individuals but also communities. And technologies in general amplify both the good and the bad that exists in humans and society. Social ills cannot be solved by technology, but by society. We can provide platforms, we can optimize some solutions, we can provide tools for lawyers, trusts and entities, but we can not really solve only within technology these problems. Again, back to this first slide, solutions can never be perfect. Technology is usually blamed for problems of people. Usually these are organizational, management, governance, bias problems which exist in society. Technology is not responsible for these problems. There is a danger that AI and algorithms will be blamed for these ills of society. And well, what we can do is we can tame the technology in a way. We might be able to avoid being blamed for all these social ills by developing technologies that adapt to the needs of humans in society and that are more trusted by being more transparent and controllable by users. This human in the loop, of course, is important, but I think that actually computer should be in the loop and the user should be controlling it. This is actually from Ricardo's recent talk, Computer in the Loop. I really like this, but the picture is mine. Okay, so thank you very much. And of course, as usual, I went over time.